me introduce our last panelist. Dr. Angela Diaz is the director of Mount Sinai Adolescent Health Center and a professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital. In directing a pioneering program that delivers high-quality care to more than 10,000 of New York City's most vulnerable young people, Dr. Diaz has become widely recognized as one of the nation's most influential advocates for adolescent health. She is elected to the National Academy of Medicine and has served on its governing council since 2017 and is the chairperson of its board of Children, Youth, and Families, and was not an author of this report, but brings a wonderful, holistic perspective to understanding the larger questions that exist in and around this important report. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Can people hear me? Yes. So on my role of chair of the board on Children, Youth, and Families, I want to thank you all, the people that work in the report, the wonderful staff that we have, and all of you for being here. But today, Bruce asked me to come and share with you some of the things that we are seeing in the field. And I want to start by, this is a study that was done of 697 people working in retail stores with stable schedule. And Joanne Williams and her colleagues found that 90% of the workers had actually delayed getting their prescription and didn't go to the doctor because they had concern about money. 26% had paid their telephone and their utilities late, and 37% of them had actually food insecurity. These are people who are working. You know, not having enough money to meet your basic needs is extremely stressful. And we know that stress affects the brain. And these are some of the major part of the brains that are affected by stress and poverty and that type of thing. This is just out of the press, and this is by a researcher, Dr. Mary Teicher, who is a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School. And he's also the director of the Developmental Biopsychiatric Research Program at McLean Hospital. And he's doing this work that is looking at financial insufficiency and its relationship with decreasing the volume of the brain of children. He just sent me this at 1 in the morning, so I'm sharing this with you for the first time. And the different areas of the brain that the volume is affected, like the postcentral gyrus that is in the back there, it's really responsible for touch and pain perception. Here in the temporal area is responsible for emotions. The superior frontal is about really self-control, and then down here is also attention. So this is the second one, and this is the last slide that I'm going to show about this. Also different areas of the brain. This is the left side of the brain that is impacted. And the lateral orbital frontal that is to my left is actually responsible for decision making, and the one in blue in the front is responsible for processing of human voices and also memory. So all these areas may be affected. Then he did this really interesting work. This is based on a community sample of 2,092 people, and they were ages 18 to 25 when he interviewed them. And just to orient all of us here, the number one are people that have much less than enough money to support the needs of their family. Number two have less. Number three have enough. Number four have more than enough. And number five is much more than enough. So basically the three are the people that have enough to support their families. If you go to one to the left, are people that really don't have enough money. And you can see this is the relationship of having that financial, I would say, insufficiency as it relates to the children, these people that he interviewed when they were children, really witnessing interparental violence. The same thing goes for child maltreatment. You can see the straight line. The less money you have, the more likely they are to actually have emotional neglect, to have physical neglect, to have verbal abuse, to have physical abuse, and to have sexual abuse. Now I want to share with you a little bit of the work that I do. I'm trained as a physician of teenagers. I'm in the field all the time, and I run this huge, complicated program where we provide integrated medical services. So we are their doctor. We do sexual and reproductive health, dental, optical, and behavioral and mental health services. Basically head to toes from mental to dental. And we also have legal services, and we have a whole bunch of specialized things for young people that we know will need extra support. The young people who are gay, lesbian, the transgender, we give them the hormone and transition them. Young people who are teen parents, we see them as a family unit to help them. Human trafficker survivors, a whole bunch of different people. And we have a huge center in Manhattan, in New York City, and also we have full-time clinics inside 6 high school buildings. And through those we serve 24 high schools and middle schools. If you know New York City, this is a map of New York City. We are there at the X, and every dot is where the young people, the patients come to us from. And if you know New York City, you will notice that the highest concentration of them come from places that have low resources. The Lower East Side, Upper Manhattan, South Bronx, Central Brooklyn, but they actually come from all over the place. And last year, we served over 12,000 young people, individuals, and they made over 50,000 visits. The age that we serve is 10 to 24, and their children, if they have children. The majority are poor, 98% are poor, low resources, and 66% of them have no insurance at all. So these kids are coming to us for primary care, routine primary care. And they may need a physical, they may have a cold, but I also do research. So those that participated actually we found a very high rate of child maltreatment, neglect and abuse. This is a routine population just coming for routine services. This is another project that I did before from 2005 to 2007. And I just wanted to know, from people coming for routine health care in primary care, how many have a history of childhood abuse and childhood sexual abuse? And 45% had a history of childhood physical abuse, and 25% a history of sexual abuse. Then I wanted to know more about, okay, what about this sexual abuse? What is happening to these kids? When does it start? And the majority of the abuse starts very early, age 3, 4, 5. The mean age of the kids was 8.8. It's a pre-pubertal phenomenon when the sexual abuse starts. This is the 100 girls that I took to look at further in the sexual abuse, where it says survivors. Those 100 girls got abused by someone over time usually, and 33 of them have multiple perpetrators. Those 33 girls had 98 perpetrators. That's a ratio of 3 perpetrators per survivor. Who's abusing these kids? So here, the most common perpetrator was a biological father. And when you add stepfathers and mother's boyfriend, they made up 53% of the perpetrator. But basically, every family member is represented, including mothers and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And I was a little surprised of that. The kids that I mentioned to you that had other perpetrators, in addition to the first one, usually happens over time, not at the same time, then those are more likely to become other family members or people known to the family. The age of the perpetrator extended from adolescence to the aged. And when I say adolescence, I don't mean 2 teenagers making out, because to me that's adolescent behavior, that's typical. It would be someone who's 16 having sex with someone who's 5. Clearly abusive with a huge age differential. The mean age of the perpetrator was 32. I mentioned to you the survivor mean age was 8.8 and 32. So just imagine the imbalance in age, development, and power. In addition to that, these young people are being abused by the people who are supposed to love and protect them. So just imagine the impact that it has in children's well-being. They are abused over time. Usually 21 were abused once, but the majority, they get abused over months and years. They are abused very frequently, sometimes monthly, sometimes weekly, sometimes daily. And I'm seeing them when they are teenagers. So just imagine, if they have been abused sometimes before, it says even over 5, 10 years, they are abused weekly or daily. When do they have the time, these children and adolescents, to go through the normal growth and development they are supposed to go through? This is just to show you that when you see abuse or violence in one child, often you have to look for the others. 100% of these kids were sexually abused. In addition to that, 68% were also physically abused, 59% emotionally abused, 28% had other types of sexual assault, such as stranger rape, and of the 83 that had had a relationship, 25 of those were abusive, which means 30% of those that had had a relationship were already, as teenagers, in abusive relationships. Then I wanted to see, okay, how do they do? And the blue one is the survivor, the kids that said to me that they have been sexually abused. The red one are those of similar background, but they said they had not been sexually abused. So the abused one, the survivors, are much more likely to be depressed. 85% of them had suicidal ideation, and 43% had attempted suicide from 1 to 7 times. This is a paper that I wrote, and this is not my patient. This is the U.S. National Representative Sample of young people, young women in grade 5 through 12. This is the U.S. representation nationwide. And there were just 2 questions that were asked. One was, have you been physically abused? Or have you been, or were you sexually abused? Which I don't think are the right question, but that's what was asked, so that's what I used. And this is just to show you. Those 0 are the ones that say they were neither physically nor sexually abused. And then look, just having either physical abuse only or sexual abuse only, how much worse they do in terms of depression, self-esteem, life stress, and sense of their health. And if you have both, physical and sexual, you're so much worse off. So you can see, you will see the same pattern here with regular drinking, regular smoking. So if you're both physically and sexually abused, you have 6 times the odds of smoking regularly. And you have about 4 times the odds of using drugs. So we see, and also eating disorders and other things. And just to close, this is a graph that from near Hartford, who shows that we are all in a life journey. And it starts in prenatal, and I would even say it's really from preconception, because whatever health you have before you get pregnant, that carries into the prenatal and then carries on. But what is great about this graph is that he's showing that when positive things happen to people, they do well. When negative things happen to people, they don't do so well. So I'm hoping that with this recommendation about alleviating child poverty, that we can have really a positive, input into the life of young people and change their trajectory so that they can do much better and really have well-being, which is what they deserve. Thank you.